Hey all, welcome back. So I think y'all know that the primary reason I went to Georgetown was to sell the heavy lead sled that was my 4-stroke outboard and to then get a much lighter 2-stroke. After buying the new outboard and rigging the davits for it, we'll walk through my very first time raising it. Then we'll get out of Georgetown and head further south on a beautiful sail to White Cay. I've been asked by several people about how I anchor, so I filmed that and we'll go through that process. Then we'll explore a completely uninhabited island and see what are probably the coolest iguanas on Earth. So join me on this wonderful adventure. And don't forget to live your dream. So I'm Amy, a Midwestern Kansas girl, and this is my boat, Maritopia. After moving to Florida in 2020, buying a $5,000 Facebook Marketplace worn-out 1973 Pearson sailboat, and spending 2 years endlessly working on her, I quit my job and have started my solo sailing adventures with the goal to truly immerse myself into as many different cultures as possible. I hope you're able to enjoy the videos as much as I do living the experiences. I'm gonna leave Gulfport. I'm not in Florida anymore. I'm gonna leave Georgetown, and I've never raised my dinghy this way. Now that I have the much lighter outboard and I've got the rigging on the davits set up, I'm gonna try to raise my dinghy with the motor on it for the very first time. So let's see if I can manage this without any issues. Secret places hidden well, I go now as far as I can tell. Did you catch that? My first mistake? I ran the line on the wrong side of the push pit. It won't hurt anything, but I'm pointing it out because this is my first time, and you'll see me struggle shortly. I figured out since how to mostly avoid the dinghy tipping to one side or the other, but the biggest thing about this is that I hadn't shut the gas tank vent off. In fact, I hadn't even thought about it. So I ended up with a bit of gas in the bottom of the dinghy. Keeping in mind that these davits are homemade, watch the outer lifting point, how it has some give and is moving. This is the entire reason I didn't want to lift the heavier 4-stroke. You might be starting to wonder why I'm even doing this at this point, and I get it. I was asking myself the same thing. But because it's my very first time, I'm learning as I go. And even now, on my first attempt, it's about 5 times faster than what I was doing prior. Now that it's raised to the height I wanted, I'm tying each side of the dinghy to a much stronger part of the framing. Doing this while underway, there is no weight at all on the outer davit lifting points. Here you're able to see the lines that attach the dinghy to the hardtop framing. Doing this means that the davit lifting points aren't bearing the entire load, and thus aren't flexing. I'd say that's pretty successful. That was my very first time, so it was a little bit of trial and error, but it worked out pretty good. Putting it around this winch down here, it's a size 44 winch to crank it up. And with the new blocks, the 3 purchased blocks I put on there, I really didn't even need the winch. The winch just made it that much easier. So I'm pretty stoked with how well that worked out. Thank goodness for light 2-stroke outboards. Well, after what seems like forever in Georgetown, Trout and I are headed over to Long Island. Should be a pretty good sail, but we'll see. I'm just looking forward to getting out of Georgetown for a change of pace for a second. I had sailed off anchor for the very first time, meaning I never even started the engine. But now I had phone calls and text alerts coming in. With boats all around in this anchorage, answering those was the last thing on my mind. At the same time, some friends I met in Nassau were on their way in, which is who I was waving at. They did send me this really cool picture of Maritopia, though. Thanks, Amy and Ray. Well, after being in Georgetown for what seems like a month, I honestly don't even know how long I was there. It feels good to be getting out. I'll be back. I have another friend that I'm going to meet there. It feels really good to be back sailing, though. Headed out of Georgetown through the south. It's dotted with these tiny islands. It's a gorgeous day for a sail. I've got only one reef in the main and the full head sail out. Be beating into the wind for a fair portion of this trip, so I wanted to put the main out to help. I may end up putting the whole thing out, but got the sails trimmed perfectly. The telltales on the main are headed straight back. And then you look at the head sail. Those telltales are perfectly in line. And straight back. The sails are just about as tight as can go because we're going upwind. Or we're beating. I finally snagged my first fish while sailing. But my excitement lasted all of around 2 seconds before I realized it was a stinking barracuda. Barracuda are very rarely eaten in the Bahamas as they have ciguatera, a sort of food poisoning for humans that causes lifelong neurologic issues and can even lead up to death. And even if it doesn't kill you, it'll sure make you feel like death for several weeks. For those not familiar with barracuda, they have razor-sharp teeth, so I was being super cautious to get nowhere near its mouth. I then put the line back out, but to date, this is the one and only fish I've caught while trolling. The wind started dying off, so I'm going to pull into White Cay, which is the very southern island in the Exumas. Head over to Long Island tomorrow. So getting ready to anchor. The depth is super shallow. That's what we're coming into. I always take my phone to the bow with me because I use it to mark the GPS location of the anchor. If it's off a couple of feet, that's not really a big deal. But I then use the app on my phone to set a distance alarm. If the boat goes further than the distance I've set, a blaring and very annoying sound goes off. Anyway, after I mark the location, you'll see me take a screenshot on the phone. Taking a screenshot is so that I have the GPS coordinates saved. This is so I can manually set the anchor location when leaving the boat and then returning. Although I often forget to turn the anchor alarm off when I leave the boat, which then leads me to hearing that very annoying alarm sound. The anchor's down. We'll let the wind drag us back into the right direction. Then we'll back down on it. So you can just barely see the anchor right there now. Before backing down on the anchor to pull it deep into the seabed, I wrap the chain around the bow cleat. This is done so that I'm not pulling the chain against the windlass, which would ruin it. Now you'll hear me giving the engine more throttle, which is while the propeller is in reverse. This is pulling the boat against the anchor, which sets it into the seabed. Since the app on my phone is set to the anchor's location, I'm watching the distance to make sure that the boat is no longer moving and that the anchor is fully set. Once the distance stops getting larger, meaning I'm tightly against the anchor, I lower the RPMs and shut the engine down. Now again using the app to measure the distance, I'll let enough chain rode out until I'm somewhere between 7 and 10 to 1. For example, if the water is 10 feet deep and the bow of the boat is 5 feet above the water, that's 15 feet. Multiply that times 7, and I'll have roughly 105 feet of chain out. Now that the correct amount of chain is out, it's time to put the bridle on. I made mine out of 3/4 inch 3-strand nylon. A bridle is used so that the solid chain isn't what's pulling against the boat. So when the boat moves with the waves, the soft bridle is what's absorbing most of the shock. Mine adds another 12 feet of length to the anchor rode scope. I attach each side of the bridle to the bow cleats, then run them through the bow chocks. That's old fire hose that you see wrapped around the rope. Fire hose is perfect for chafe protection. Now I attach the bridle's chain hook to the anchor chain. You can probably hear me breathing a bit hard right now. That's because I've got the GoPro mount adapter in order to have both hands free. Now having the bridle fully attached, I use the windlass to let more chain out. I let out more than enough so that I can then wrap the chain around the primary bow cleat. I do this so that, just in case the bridle breaks, the anchor chain isn't pulling against the windlass. All that just the anchor. Good times, eh? Well, I'm just anchored here for the night. Gonna go over to Long Island tomorrow. The winds just weren't favorable, so why sail when the winds aren't favorable? This was crazy exciting to me. In less than 5 minutes, I had the dinghy in the water and the swim platform down. This was a 90-minute task with the old outboard. Well, it's about an hour and 15 minutes later, and my boy Trout is just now showing up. He's working that wind vane pretty good. That's his autopilot. If I didn't have a swim platform, I'd have one. With Trout now anchored, it was time for some fun exploring this entirely uninhabited island. Most Americans never venture any further south than Georgetown, so this island has definitely seen far fewer people. Well, this is White Cay, the southernmost island in the Exumas. There's Trout. The only two human beings in sight. I love it. Entirely different than Georgetown. Mother Nature and all her beauty. A bunch of tiny little palm trees. Heck, the tallest one I see is 12, 15 feet. But most of them are like 4 or 5 feet.
That iguana, man. He's coming for me.
That's an odd looking iguana. Beautiful. Just different than we've seen. It's so cool. Just a gorgeous skin. I don't know if it'll come through in the video, but it's kind of like it's got a metallic flake in its skin. You can tell that not many people visit this island because they weren't scared of people at all. It was like when I was in Antarctica, how the seals and the penguins weren't afraid of humans in the slightest. Softest sand I've ever felt. So you can see this sand that we've been playing in is, the charts will say shifting sand, or the charts will just flat out be wrong. So they'll say it's 7 feet. So you think with my boat that draws 6, I think I can get in there. Well, the sand is shifted and I bottom out. So this sand right here is probably in places 2 feet, and it's definitely sand that has shifted as the tides come in and out.
Another day in paradise.
Now that the sun was down, it was time to get some sleep before having to get up early the following morning to head over to Long Island. If you'd like to stay up to date and follow along with the adventures, please be sure to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. Next week we'll head just a bit further south, sailing in the heaviest winds I'd ever been in, with the boat going over 8 knots. We'll explore the island and be introduced to a fruit I'd never had. After a small boat project, we'll then get in the water for some spearfishing, as I continue to push myself deeper and deeper.